I love looking at Bill O'Reilly's talking points because in the majority of cases, you could shoot a hell of a lot of holes in them. So let's look at his talking points for this evening.
With the media and other powerful left-wing interests allied against Mr. Trump, his mandate to win the election is to convince the majority of voters that he can bring a vibrant economy back to America.
That's true. If he can bullshit everybody into believing he can do that, that would be something that people might be able to hang their hats on.
It's now been more than 8 years since greedy banks and mortgage companies ignited one of the worst recessions in the nation's history.
That's also true.
8 years is more than enough time, though, for the powers that be in Washington to get the country back on the fast track economically, but it hasn't happened.
That part is pretty much also true as far as the middle class is concerned. And why is that? Because the Republicans don't want the economy to work so that they can try to win a presidential election.
No matter what kind of propaganda you hear.
By almost every economic measure, America's better off than when I came here at the beginning of my presidency. That's the truth.
Not exactly. Here are the facts. Median income for American families up less than 1% on the president's watch.
Okay, well, the president said better than when he got in. So if it's up, it's up. So that's strike one, Mr. O'Reilly.
Nearly 14 million Americans have stopped looking for work since Mr. Obama took office, an increase of more than 15% since his inauguration.
Okay, now break that down, and that number is not 14 million people. If you exclude people who have retired, then you're basically getting like 50,000 people a month, the baby boomers that are retiring. So if you got 50,000 people a month, that knocks that $14 million figure down substantially.
And the gross domestic product, which measures the health of the American economy, has risen less than 3% every year since 2009. If that holds true this year, and it will, Mr. Obama will go down in history as the first modern president to not produce a GDP of more than 3% in any year of his administration.
Now, that part is true. So, Mr. O'Reilly, you got 1 out of 3.
So that's the fact, Jack. And no amount of spin will change it. Americans understand it's much tougher to prosper these days than it should be.
True.
I want to be sure that we get small businesses starting and growing in America again. We have stalled out. I was very surprised to see that when I began to dig into it. It turns out that we're not producing as many small businesses as we used to, and a recent world study said that we are 46th in the world in the difficulty to start a small business.
That's all true. Everything Mrs. Clinton said is true. And the reason? High taxes on business and expensive regulations.
That's not the reason, Bill. The reason is that capital is being restricted. Okay? I.e., one, as far as housing is concerned, banks, after that major downturn and the real estate bubble burst, banks have not been loaning money on real estate mortgages anywhere near the level that they had been prior to the recession. Their regulations have tightened up so that only legitimate borrowers can obtain mortgages when purchasing a house. So if you want to call that expensive regulations, I'll he and haw on that one. But it's not high taxes. The tax rates, which were reduced by Bush, are still in effect So you got 1 out of 2 on that one. But the problem is capital, the ability to obtain capital. And the banks are being highly restrictive on the lending out of capital.
Yet, Secretary Clinton continues to say she'll carry on the policies of Barack Obama, which have mandated high taxes and an avalanche of regulation. Very puzzling. To be fair, the president now says he wants to cut the corporate tax rate, but it's a little late, is it not? So Donald Trump has the economic field pretty much all to himself. All the polls say American voters are not happy with the Democratic Party's economic programs. But Trump must do more than just promise. He has to get very specific.
Now let's cut him off there. You can't say that the people are unhappy with the Democratic economic programs. The Democrats aren't in power in the House of Representatives or in the Senate. All economic programs have to be legislated through the House of Representatives, confirmed by the Senate, and then signed off by the President. The House is not generating any type of economic stimulus or even infrastructure bills that are sorely needed in this country. Congress has basically ground the country to a halt, and the only thing keeping us going now is the private sector.
The truth is, China may not be intimidated into a better trade deal with the USA.
That's
Mexico's
true.
certainly not going to pay for a $1 billion wall.
That's
which
true.
They believe is insulting. And while bringing jobs back to America is achievable, it will require a big carrot as well as a thick stick. Nothing is ever easy in the economic precincts. But that is where Donald Trump will either live or die as a presidential candidate. Social issues matter little this year. Terrorism is important, but the situation is so complicated voters cannot possibly predict outcomes in the terror front. However, the folks know, they know what's in their bank accounts. They know President Obama has not helped them out very much. Advantage, Trump. And that's enough. Dr.
Advantage on spewing bullshit would be Trump. If the president and the Congress can get on the same page and spur growth, and I'm not talking about giving away free money, but I'm talking about putting money into the economy in order to stimulate job growth, government job growth, government program job growth, i.e. infrastructure, roads, water systems, etc., wind, etc., that would put people back to work, generating tax revenue from people that are working. That 3% GDP would definitely get up over 4.5%. But since the Republicans had a game plan, and their game plan was to stall out anything that the Democrats, and in particular President Obama, could hang his hat on, that's why we are where we are right now. Thank you, Mr. O'Reilly.